talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? Chat with the ladies about their day, the ups and downs along the way. She's a cook, she's a chauffeur, she's a worker bee. First in the door and last to leave. Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk?
Welcome to Girl Talk. I'm Regina Ayars and I'm your host today. Girl Talk is a lively discussion of the opportunities, issues, challenges that face women in our valley in their daily lives. We interview women that are making a difference in our communities here in the Rogue Valley. And today we are going to be focusing on women running for office on the Ashland City Council that are facing incumbents. And this is for the fall election, and we're having a part 1 and a part 2. My co-host, Carol Voisin, is not going to be hosting with me today because she is actually one of the candidates. Now, I attended a forum earlier this week. There are 11 candidates running for 4 positions on the Ashland City Council. And except for the municipal court judge and the county or the city recorder, everybody is running against an incumbent. And they are running unopposed, but everybody else has at least 2, if not 3 people running for each position. So in Council Position 2, there's Mike Morris, Theo White, and Tonya Graham, our guest today. Council Position 3, there's Jackie Bachman, Julie Akins, our guest today, and Alfred Willslater. And Council Position 4 is Stephanie Steffinger and Carol Voisin, who is our guest today. And then there is Council Position 6, and there are 3 gentlemen running for that position. So today we have 3 of the many dedicated citizens that have been willing to step forward and run for city council and other positions in our county. As I said before, Tonya Graham, Julie Akins, and Carol Voisin. So welcome, ladies. Now the format today is going to be less formal than you had earlier this week and in other forums you've been in. No timer. We are going to have some questions that I believe you received prior to the discussion today, and there'll probably be some questions that come up spontaneously. So why don't we get started? So the first question, and I'm going to put it to Tonya first, is what is the advantage for an incumbent that's running for office?
Well, the incumbent has been already doing that work for a while, so they will sort of automatically have a deeper immediate knowledge. There's a much higher hill to climb, I would say, for the candidate that's opposing an incumbent in terms of just getting familiar with the myriad different issues that are up in front of the city. And while the campaigns are happening, that person still is doing that work out in the community, and so people are able to see that person associated with that particular position in the community throughout the campaign time. And I think that that's the primary advantage or benefit of being an incumbent.
Julie?
Well, I guess I'd have to say I'm not 100% sure since I'm not an incumbent, but I think that Tonya is right. They have the gig already, so they have some familiarity with it. The person that currently holds seat 3 has not been in office too long, I think since March, so she has a little less equity in the position than, for instance, Mike Morris that Tonya is challenging. But I think the incumbent has that incumbency, that thing that says, I've already got the job, you might as well keep going. You didn't ask me this yet, but I'm just going to say quickly, I also think that they have a bit of a hill to climb in terms of overcoming some things that folks in the community are not happy with, direction that the city is going in terms of budget and other things. And so they have to defend a position, which can also be difficult. So there are pros and cons to both.
So they're running against their record. They have
They
a
are.
record.
They are,
Good,
yeah.
good or bad. Carol, what's your thought on that?
I think an incumbent has one major advantage, and that is name recognition. That's huge, especially if you've never run before. And both Tonya and Julie have that. Known in the community for sure, both of you, but still, name recognition is huge. And that's why lawn signs are somewhat important, that they at least see your name and begin to relate that to a position on the city council. So I think name recognition is just huge for an incumbent to have.
So how do you overcome that issue of name recognition? You mentioned yard signs.
You start with lawn signs, but you also get out and you walk and knock. You get in people's faces. You go to their homes. You show them that you're willing to get out of a comfortable chair and go to their front door and knock on it and engage in some conversation with them. That really does impress people, especially younger people, that you care enough to go to where they are at. And that gives them the signal that you are someone who is really concerned about where they stand, what their issues may be. And I think that's one way to begin to combat it. But you're always going to be behind the 8 ball on this one.
So how about, what are your thoughts? How have you gained name recognition over the incumbents that you're running against? Tonya?
Well, I'm not sure that I have.
Oh, okay.
I don't think we ever have a good way of measuring that.
Right.
But a big part of it, I think, is figuring out who else supports my campaign already, and having those folks share with their friends. Because what we know is in the noise of the campaign season, people become harder to reach in terms of messages that come out about what type of a candidate someone might be. And so it's really that person-to-person contact. So who do I know? Those folks who understand how I operate in the world and who support the campaign, and then having them reach out to their friends and their networks in a personal way, I think is another way to add on to that door-to-door piece.
Julie?
Well, I think I've got a little bit of an advantage on this in the sense that I've been here a super long time. And because I've been a journalist in the community and I got to have that byline thing, and I think that helped. But still in all, there's a ton of people who don't know me, and I agree with Carol. Going door to door has been a great way to meet people, and also a great way for me to figure out what people really care about and having those conversations. And truthfully, I've fallen more in love with Ashland by doing that, just going door to door, and I meet people. There was a young man vacuuming and listening to hip hop super loud in his house, and I'm banging on the door, and then he comes and he's like, oh no, and he puts on his shirt really fast, and we had this long conversation, and I asked for his vote, and he was just such a cool guy. And those experiences are really memorable to me and worth the price of admission, just in seeking office, because I get to do that. If I wasn't seeking office, I wouldn't get to just knock on doors and go, hey, who are you? Can I meet you? So it's a nice excuse, and it does help with name recognition, I think. I guess like Tonya said, I don't know, we'll find out.
Yeah, but Ashland folks are so open and willing to talk with you and are so good natured. I mean, they would say, they don't even know who I am, and I say, well, here's my card, and then they'll say, and by the way, good luck. And I just think that's so warming that, they care enough to even say that. So Ashland folks are really very generous with their feelings and with their attributes and thanking us for running. And I just think that's remarkable. That's really a boost for those of us who are running against incumbents, that they care enough to say, yeah, thank you for running.
Yeah. Well, you've all mentioned canvassing. So what are some of the other ways that you structured your campaign to address the fact that you, at some level, are the underdog if you're all running against incumbents? So were there other strategies that you used, Tonya?
Yeah, I put together a very detailed website. So if you go on my website, it's tonyaforashland.com. I've listed a number of the issues that I think we're facing in this community, and have put in pretty significant write-ups about what I think about those issues and the path I see forward and the city's role in that. And I think that's part of this work is making sure that people understand that this is, I'm very serious about this campaign, and I'm very serious about serving well, and that means digging into these serious challenges that we have. And so that's been a big part of it, is making sure that people can really see who I am, and it's not just slogans, campaign slogans, that sort of thing. And that's one of the benefits of living in a small community. We all know a lot of these candidates, as we have personal relationships with candidates. When it comes down to who should serve on the city council, though, that's a different question. That question is whose leadership style is what's needed right now for the town. And I think Ashland has a really good ability to separate those two things. Small towns always do. You always have to separate that in a small town. If you're talking about running in a bigger city, most people are not going to know the people who are running. And so those campaigns can kind of move on their own. In a small town, you have to be able to separate a personal relationship from what do you think is the best strategy for the community at the moment. And so to help people make that decision, I've put significant detail on my website so they can see.
It's hard to separate those two, though, you know.
It is. It
because
takes a conscious effort.
Right, you have close relationships if you've been in the community for a while. So Julie, any strategies that you've used besides canvassing to ensure that your name is out there?
Yeah, I have sort of an interesting, we've been doing some interesting things, trying some stuff. Certainly, yeah, canvassing, as you mentioned, and just trying to let people know that while I can be critical of the current city council and the way things are going, I'm also really collaborative. And I want them to meet me where I am and know that, you know, my intentions are really good, and I want to work with everybody in this city and bring them under one big tent. And whatever happens, I'm here for the city of Ashland. I always have been, I always will be. This is my place. So I try to get that message across a variety of ways. I am using social media quite a bit. I have in my job in mainstream media for years. I know the value of social media. I use it a lot. I have a Facebook page, Time for Change. You can go on there. Same thing, detailed position statements on each of the issues that are affordable housing, living wage jobs, the environment, and the budget, and all those things are detailed there. I'm also shooting videos, little mini video stories, sort of like reporter stand-ups around town, and I'll be releasing those shortly. They're kind of fun. They're meant to be slightly lighthearted. I'm doing those, and then my campaign.
And they'll be on Facebook?
They'll be on Facebook
okay.
And YouTube, and then my campaign manager is a local musician. So we're going to be going and doing open mic nights where he's written these campaign songs, and I'm going to do spoken word with it, and just
nice.
We just want to have fun, because a lot of the young folks in our community don't come out to forums and don't necessarily watch programs like this. So I want to reach them where they go. So we're doing that. We're just throwing stuff up in the air, meeting as many people as we can, and having some fun while we do it, because this is important. But life always has time for humor and fun.
Great,
so.
great. Carol, I know you've done some videos.
Yes, and those are going to be coming out soon as well, YouTube and some on Facebook. The other thing that I'm doing is also watching Facebook, the Ashland Peeps and Ashland Politics, to see if there are any questions or issues that are arising that I should address. I also have a hurdle to jump over, and that is having run previously and been on city council for 8 years, and then taking a break for 2 years. I also have this stigma that's been put upon me that I am the one who votes 1 to 5, and that I did that over. People have been saying most of the time that's how I voted, but the research doesn't hold up. Basically, I voted 70% of the time with the majority. And the 30% of the time, if you go back and take a look, I was voting against increases in utility bills because there wasn't a sound rationale for them. And also for CIPs that didn't have a detailed description of what they were about. So, I can defend my voting record. It's really hard to do, in a short amount of time. So, I'm trying to get the word out about that as well.
So you actually are, in some ways, an incumbent historically. So you have a record, as
Yep,
you're saying,
that I have to defend.
That you have to defend. So that's a challenge.
It is.
It
It
is
is. So
definitely
I
a
have both an
challenge.
incumbent and a record to defend.
Right, right. Well, if you had your opponent here in front of you, and I know you have two, so you can think of one of those. What would be the question that you would like to ask that opponent, and have that person exchange with you? So, Tonya, do you want to start?
Sure. My question would really be about what has my opponent done proactively on the council to address some of our major issues. It's whenever you have an incumbent, they not only have their own record to stand behind, but they also have the record of the council, and that can be a good or a bad thing depending on the decision. But the question that I have is, what is that particular candidate's role? What was their role in many of the achievements that they will put out into the world as having been part of their work?
What was the
More
issue?
so than knowing.
What issue in your particular case would you focus on with your opponent?
I think it's actually you can just look across the run of issues. Different candidates or different council members will have stepped in on ad hoc committees, right, on different issues. And so my question would be, which of these major issues that we're up against in Ashland have you taken a personal interest in and put extra time into in order to help move the city forward, as opposed to just what have you voted for as it's come in front of the council? And that would be the question. And it's across the board. What are those things that you have put extra time and your personal energy into to help Ashland solve a problem?
Julie?
Well, I guess I also want to say, I'm their opponents, but they're not my opponents. Jackie and Al are good people, and frankly, I like them, and I can't help but like them. I find them charming. I think what I would ask Jackie is a similar line of questioning. Why is she running again? What is it she really stands for? When it comes right down to it, what is the one thing that she wants to change, that she can't abide the occurrence of? And I don't have that yet. I think Jackie's talked a lot about her ability to lead and to collaborate, and those are really good and important things, and a baseline, I think, for anyone who wants to serve. But I'm concerned about where she stands specifically on issues, and frankly, I haven't really heard that yet. I think she is interested in affordable housing, but I don't know what specific steps she wants to take to create more affordable housing. I think she is interested in how we're going to address climate change, but I'm still unclear on exactly what steps she wants to take. So that's what I would ask her. Please be more specific about what you're going to do.
Carol?
Steffi is my opponent, and there are several questions I have to ask her, but one in particular. And, I appreciate her work on the council and on the ad hoc committee she's been on, and I know she really wants to continue with SEEP, and that's going to be, a 10 or 20-year commitment for the city. So, I understand why she can do that as not as a council member. So, but the question I want to ask her is, where were you when the budget decisions were made? The budget is a gigantic issue. When a city council votes for 5 police officers with no revenue stream, I just must say, I have to call them out. That was irresponsible. Not only do I call them out, but quite a few people on social media have done the same. That you're looking at close to $1 million added to our general fund, and that already is a vulnerable fund. So I would just want to know where, I want to know where Steffi was in that decision-making process. And the other tangential question is, where were you when the citizens on the budget committee were being treated so flagrantly mistreated by the council, and they, the citizens on the committee, would say that. And so where were the other councilors in identifying, you have to be civil when we're talking about the budget and the differences that we have. And I didn't see a councilor doing that. And so I would like to know from Steffi why it is she didn't step up.
Okay, well, we're coming to the end of our part one. We are going to be having a part two. So let's close this part one with the top priority. Just pick the one that's the most important to you. Like you said, you want to know where Mike spent the extra time because that was his issue. And so pick your top priority that you want to focus on if you're elected to the city council. Let's start with Julie.
I think it's following the money.
Okay.
I know it's a bit of a cliche in journalism, but that's what I've done for 30 years, and I'm not stopping now. I think we have to follow the money. Where did it go? Why are we in this budget scenario that we're in? Why is it that we continue to raise utility rates on the backs of folks who can't afford it? I think we have to get this budget under control, and our spending needs to follow our priorities. I know there's a ton of stuff that we appreciate about living in this community, but we have to get baseline stuff taken care of first. So that budget process, I witnessed it. I was there for every meeting, and honestly, it was a mess. There was disrespect. I mean, at one point, the mayor said, "I'm going to get up and leave." This was a contentious process that didn't need to be that way.
Correct?
I was there. I covered every budget meeting. I wrote about every budget meeting. I had a copy of it under my arm every single time I went, and I watched that process. It was not good, and I think our budget's still in trouble. So, number one priority, follow the money. What's going on with this budget, and let's get it under control.
Do you feel you have the expertise in order to be proactive in ensuring that happens? The budget's very complicated.
It's complicated, and I'm not an accountant. But I do believe that I'm capable of listening to people who are very well informed about this budget, like our Citizens Budget Committee. These folks knew what they were talking about. So I'm capable of listening to that, and I'm capable of setting priorities and following that money. Yes, I do believe I absolutely am ready to do that work.
Okay. Tonya?
It actually tears a bit off of what Julie was talking about. We need to identify our priorities as a community. We have a lot of things that the city does, a lot of goal aspirations of what different people want the city to do, and we need to have a community-driven strategic planning process so that the council has a roadmap and the staff has a roadmap about what are the most important things for them to be focusing on. Clearly, we know that the bread and butter of city council and city operations is services. That's the vast amount of staff time and money that comes through the city. It's going to be focused on that. Outside of that, where the city has some flexibility for putting energy and time and resources, we need to know what the highest 2 or 3 priorities are in the community. And then the city council and the administration at the city need to start to really focus our resources around those priorities so that we can get out ahead of them and actually address them instead of chasing behind them.
Okay. Carol?
I think it's clearly, for me, it's the budget. And it's getting it in order, then we can see our priorities. It's that bad, the budget, especially with capital improvement projects. $10 million for a new city hall, that's moving ahead. And we've already spent $200,000 for it, but we can retrofit the current city hall for $2.5 million. And also the water treatment plant. Let's just consider alternatives, and that's the kind of thing that I want to see happen through the budget process, because if any of us are elected, what's going to hit us first is the budget process. That starts in January. So we're going to be involved in a budget process, and as we go through the budget process, that's when I think we bring in and try to identify the priorities of our community through forums that aren't just at the library or at people's homes, but really spread them out so that counselors can go to various homes or SOU or wherever we may have them and really hear what people are saying, what the priorities are. But before we can do that, we have to have some idea of what our services are costing. And that means we have to be into the budget process, figure out basically where we want to go, and then let's invite the public to be engaged in what decisions that we're going to have to make around money. And it's their money and we're spending it. And I think that, to me, is really important. It's not our money. It's the citizens of Ashland. It's their money. And we need to have their voice involved in how we make those decisions.
Well, it seems like there's consensus at the table here that it's the budget is really crucial in prioritizing the items that are on that budget. And it sounds like the timing is good because the new council will be in office in January, and that's when the budgeting process will take place. So ladies, we've come to the end of part 1. We will have a part 2. And I'd like to thank you all. And Tonya, Graham, Julie Akins, and Carol Voisin running for City Council in the November election. And I'd like to thank our all-volunteer crew. We kind of had a lean and mean crew this morning. So Wanda Borland is our director, and David Nenow, Charles Douglas pitched in here, and appreciate that. And we have a new crew person manager that's behind the camera. And you remember the name of that person? No. Can you tell us your name back there?
My name is Keegan Van Hook.
Keegan, thank you very much.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, and I want to thank the Digital Media Center and SOU for hosting us today. So Girl Talk can be seen on Rogue Valley TV, Channel 15 with Ashland HomeNet, and Channel 182 with Charter, at 3 p.m. on Saturdays and at 6:30 on Thursday evenings, and on demand online at roguevalleytv.sou.edu. So check public access at the top of the page, and then you can search for Girl Talk. All of our mini episodes will be there. So I hope you've learned something new today about our election, our very important election that's coming up this fall. And we will be here for part 2, so please stay tuned.